Big services with it though.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the Thursday, April 17th, Rensselaer Advisory Plan Commission meeting to order. Josh, would you please proceed with the roll call?
Yes. President Kevin Arnold.
Here.
Vice President Jeff Rayburn.
Here.
Bryce Black. Cliff Wood. Here. Dina Rule.
Here.
Scott Barton. Here. Craig Hewitt.
Here.
Mike Davis. Absent. Sean Cobby.
Here.
All right.
I saw Attorney Salmon's email today. Was he? Do we want to call him or?
What's it? Oh, he
was going to be driving. He would call it.
Oh yeah, but we told him that we were just really discussing this map. There's no.
Okay. Yeah. There's no need for him. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from the last meeting, and you all have those in front of you. We have a few minutes to look over them.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second. Been motioned and seconded to approve the minutes from the last meeting as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right. Opposed? The minutes are approved. We have no old business.
Not tonight, no.
Okay. New business, review and discuss future land use map. I know there's been quite a bit of work on Josh and Crystal's part to put some thought and use and time into this. And so Josh, I'll turn it over to you to explain where you're at.
Yeah, so last meeting we talked about, we're looking at extending the 2 mile buffer limit around the city for planning jurisdiction. And in order to do that, one of the things we need to do is update this future land use map than what is currently in the comprehensive plan. I have that up right now. But it's a lot smaller than this. So in our last discussions, that first map you have right here is planning and zoning jurisdiction. I went around and just took it to the absolute limit for this map. This is what, if we approve this to amend the comprehensive plan with this map, this will give us the ability to zone to this limit of the county. So basically gives us that authority when we present it to them. With the county, it's kind of like a zone map change for them as the way the approval will go when we do that expansion. Hopefully do that in the next couple of months here. We were going to try to do it in an accelerated time frame, but since we're doing the housing plan right now and everything, decided to slow down and let's make sure we take a little more into consideration as far as identifying areas we want mapped. Whenever we do a zone change or do anything, we're supposed to refer to this map right here as what our actual plan was for the next 10 to 20 years. So so as you can see, the first one there is just kind of the green, all the arc there is just right up to the bounds of 2 miles. And then as we zoom in, and that's all the green is agriculture on there. What I did provide you with here also, you look on here, I forgot to print the agriculture page. I missed that when I printed it, but I'm pretty sure we all know what ag uses are as far as green. But you can look through these definitions of these different shaded colored areas on these. They differ a little bit than our current zoning code. So I just want you to be aware of that as you're looking through this. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility. One in general is suburban residential in our zoning code is, just 1 acre lots with single family homes, and suburban residential on this map has a little bit different definition. So we just got to kind of take those things into consideration. That way, if you want to refer to those, if there's something you're not clear on what that definition is, refer to this sheet for the definitions. And as we zoom in here, this one you guys are the next couple of weeks, and if you want to come in sometime and sit down and go over this with me in more detail, if you have time to look at it. But if you look on the north end here, I've kind of went through and tried to identify, the yellow there is some areas they've identified for housing for us. but I've kind of went through and looked at how things are currently developed right now, what we would like to in the future, and tried to morph those two together and not just dictate one way or the other. We have,
Josh, when you say they, you're talking about HWC with the housing action.
yes, yeah, sorry, HWC has identified some of those areas for housing, and we'll go over those in greater detail. But especially what I want you guys to focus on is kind of the areas along the corridor there, where we have business, which is red, and then light industrial, which is kind of a purple shade. So I just went through, that's kind of matches what our zone map currently is, what the current future land use map is, and then just kind of how things are already developed right now. So we're not going and changing things drastically on people. I'm constantly dealing with areas in town where things were rezoned that don't make sense why they were rezoned, because it's just put everybody in non-compliance. So trying to help us out as we try to fix those areas to have this looked at a little closer so we don't create more problems. You can look through the other ones, but for tonight, what I really wanted to focus on as we're doing this housing plan, I think, Crystal, did you send this out to everybody? Or I will send this out to everybody. It's a big long thing, the preliminary findings. I'll send it to all you guys. There's some good data they have in here. But for the most part, what they identified as we met last week is some sites around town where they thought would be good to look at, making sure this map showed it for housing. So I'll pull that up here and we can kind of go through these areas. So if you look up on the screen up there, they gave us quite a few areas, and we'll go through them one by one here. So focus area A is kind of in the center of town there. Scroll down here, a couple areas that identified and some we're working on already. They have on the bottom right here, it's 7th Street, where we're looking at developing that street. They identified that as a good area to get going for housing. This area is at the end of Scott Street, just basically on the other side of the ditch from the primary school. There's two blocks right there that are completely undeveloped. We've had different contractors and stuff reach out about that recently as well. And then another area they kind of identified in the center of town is over here by the quarry. That's the one out here on the left. So there's a big chunk of ground directly west of the quarry there that would be the other good idea to look at housing. So let's see here. Next ones we have here, B, look on your maps, that's kind of out there by the new St. Joe subdivision. Let's see here. So I've kind of extended a little bit bigger than they had, but it's look on here, that's west of the health department of the county building right there. West of Sparling Road is what we're looking at right here. On here, I kind of identified it on here as just traditional neighborhood housing to develop that a little bit more than suburban. That way we can get a little more mixed uses in there. Let's see, C. This is still kind of St. Joe here. So we have the parcel directly south of St. Joe on the map here. I kind of split that in a few different areas. I did kind of high density housing, suburban residential, and I put business on there just as an empty lot. We want to give it plenty of options for if a developer was come in to that area right there and look at it. Where they have it on here, that's approximately 43 acres, all owned by one person right now. So has a lot of potential ways that it could be developed. Then southwest of that is the area just west of Houston subdivision, and they just kind of like a Houston subdivision out there, single family homes and duplexes to just continue developing out west on Mount Calvary there. And as you can see, that yellow is basically what I identified on our map here. Moving along here, we have D. And if you look at your west map, that'll probably give you your best look at that. So this is kind of the area circling around Countryside subdivision right now. So they've identified it along 114 as a possible area for multifamily housing across from Tractor Supply there and Parmalee Farms, how I marked on our map there. And then also just more single family homes. So that's how I marked it there. And in the past, we had that corridor running all along right there, so we're just trying to give ourselves a little bit more options on how that might develop instead of just.
How many acres is that?
They said what they're marking on here for D with, this whole area here, they have 147 acres is what is available out there.
It's that whole field then.
Yeah, so a big part of that is what's directly south of Countryside there along Buncombe, behind those first houses you come to on Buncombe, all that area. They just did some clearing in the woods there. They've also identified, suggested maybe townhomes, in that skinny section, which we used to be the old trailer park right there. So kind of adjacent to the park. Out there when
You
there's.
must be too young to remember.
Vaguely remembers a kid. I grew up there.
So as you look on your map there, you can see I've kind of tried to identify a few areas with the multifamily. That's one of the harder things that for us to look at, and in my mind is where we want to determine, to allow apartment complexes and things like that. It's not something we have a lot of in this town, so it's really difficult to know where the best places for those are. Let's see. All right. We move on to F here. That's on the north side of 114, just north of the fire department is kind of where they, that little area right there. We did send them a map yesterday that may be a little bit harder to develop just because the east-west runway of the airport does extend over in that a little bit. So we have to work with the airport to know exactly what all is developable there.
Do you extend Vine Street or you?
Monroe, well, no, you could extend Vine Street to continue past the training area there, but the idea right now that we've talked about is extending Monroe Street north right there into that area.
You're still pretty far from the airport.
It is, but they have like just kind of like the buffer area of the airport. It extends a long way over there. I'll pull it up on here just kind of show you because it's more than you would imagine.
I mean, Tracy Smith's house is.
Yeah, when you built that, you had your airport manager out there all over.
Yeah.
They're pretty strict, the FAA is
Changed
about
it
their.
all recently, haven't they? Airport one extended a lot of their buffer from.
They're going to the west for that east-west runway to get enough length.
Yeah,
Well, the buildings can still be built, it's just a height restriction.
yeah.
Tracy's just gonna go.
So this is just kind of the approach area that they have drawn right here that kind of extends way over there. And so here's the fire station right here. So it kind of cuts into that potential right there. I don't know what all is allowed to be developed on that approach area.
Then you got the ditch on the other side of the property too.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of ground there, but that will restrict everything that can be done right there. So. And then as far as it goes, and we let HWC know this in the meeting, and we sent the maps, but the west, that east-west runway, it's drawn a little bit too big over here, but it basically goes to 850 west. So. And the airport is close to having all the ground they need for that as well. So.
That for decades. Or more.
Moving along here, what's the next one? All right, G, let's see, it's on, looking at your north end map. We're kind of identifying, area west of Matheson, north of the railroad tracks. I've kind of up here. Kind of. We look here, they just identified this as more residential, that it's a good area to residential. We have all the city services out there now. We just extended the sewer out there, so it'd be easy connections for everything for us. That's a little bit outside the city limits right there. So we always look at that as far as the city goes for electric consumption, but it is an area that should be easy to get developed. And got H, okay, that's over there north of you, Craig, or north and west. So H, I put it as kind of traditional, more traditional housing, just because that's what we have over here. That's the area north of the primary school, and then this, the field just to the east of the primary school as well. So instead of doing suburban residential, I kind of just did more traditional housing right there, because we are a little bit on a tighter footprint for as far as lot sizes go in that whole area already, so. And this, I mean, this one right here, and it's something for us to consider as well, if we do have the Whitner Industrial Park just to the south of there, which way do we want that to be developed? It's a question I have. Like, it is ready for residential, but it's also could be easily extended to be more industrial and business as well to go to the north there, so.
We also extend industrial going.
East, yeah. So just, yeah, things we think about. There wasn't, in the land use map we currently have, there wasn't much or any thought put into anything east of the city limits. It was just right there and just, and, you know, there wasn't any, like, how do we want the city to start developing outside of the limit, you know? So I put a little bit on here just as to bring that point up to remind me, is just that I threw some, you know, residential just on the other side of the school there, you know, just as what do we want to start working east as well, so. But that's a good point. It could be whatever, just I think it would be good for us to put something on the map that we, you know, what we would like to see developed there. So we're not at the mercy of whoever, or, you know, just to say ag, it might not be the best thing, you know, as things develop, or if we're trying to encourage people to come. Let's see what we got on here. H. Okay, so those are the main areas. We can go back to the front one here. But I mean, they've looked all over town and pointed those out. And as far as if you look at the West End map, we have also added in there, you know, more suburban residential to the north and south of Sherwood Forest and Kelly Greens. And then I also did a little bit more on the north side of Buncombe coming back to town. We are working with the county of doing more development out in that area. So I'm just trying to, you know, put a little thought into what we would see like to develop along those as well. So
Another ball be single family residential.
yeah, so the way theirs is with the suburban residential, they kind of call it out. It gives you a little bit more options. Let me just read it on here. Just get back to my page here. It has a little bit of single family homes, attached single family homes. So that would be like a duplex, but you could sell each side could own it. We don't really have a whole lot of that in town besides some condos. And then also being able to mix in some townhouses, duplexes and stuff like that. But to have a more single family home feel to the neighborhood, but it doesn't have to all be single family. But with the idea of a little bit more space involved in everything, since you're a little bit outside the city. So
You talk about the score a little bit.
They just looked at the higher end ones, just like as far as ready and easy to develop. You know, so the higher the score, just like the more they felt it was an area. If we got the developers coming and asking where's land that can be developed, the higher score meant those are where we should be encouraging them to go. Okay. And work with those property owners.
Just an easier, quicker development.
Yeah.
Potential development.
Yeah. And easier for the city, you know, as far as water, sewer, electric, gas and everything. We already have everything right there. So we're not having to extend a mile out on some utility to get that area serviced. So. Kevin, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, I mean, from the meeting, I felt like in my mind, I remember they were focusing on, we need, you know, a little bit smaller houses for first time home buyers.
Yes.
And also for seniors wanting to downgrade into smaller homes and stuff like that. So
One story, smaller
Yeah.
footprint, yeah.
Yeah,
What do they consider a small?
What was the smallest in most zones were like,
well, they said, they did, like our largest one that's required for a single family home is 1,080 square feet. And they felt like that was plenty big enough for the smallest even they were recommended, you know. I think around a lot of our houses in Scott, maybe, you know, this, but like a lot of our stock is more around like 1,400 square feet, you know, so. But we're still missing, we still need more of that size, you know.
You mentioned duplexes and that.
Yeah.
They're great. Investors love buying duplexes. If they're available, they get built. First person who builds them, they will sell. Because I sell a bunch of them up north.
Okay.
This Wheatfield, Vermont area, there's a lot more duplexes up there and they sell all the time.
On that for rental properties.
Yep.
On that note, have you ever considered having a renter registration? Or rental registration, I should say.
I've chatted with the mayor about it just briefly, but you know, basically like a registration program to be able to go review rental properties and make sure they're up to minimum housing code or standards and stuff like that. Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit. It's just, it'd be a lot. I mean, as far as it goes with our city though, it is great once we have all the utilities. It'd be really easy to control a program like that to be able to go and check properties when they change hands and stuff like that. So.
It's on the, what's that thing called?
listserv?
Oh, Ames listserv?
Yeah, that just went through this week.
Okay.
I can't remember what.
I don't remember which one might be, but there's one set several, like set their ordinance and their requirements and all that kind of stuff.
I know that's one of the topics at my next monthly building meeting in Greenwood. That was on the list of topics of rental registration programs. So,
Because I know that we do have rental properties in our city that are, I would say, do not meet the minimum standards for safe living conditions.
yeah.
But I didn't know if that was something that you would try to throw in on its own or lump in with the other thing that you're working on, the property.
Oh, I think they go kind of hand in hand because that property maintenance code would set the standard for minimum housing conditions, and then you just have a program to register rental properties and you basically, I've talked to somebody that Illinois does it, and you basically do an occupancy inspection like every time the property changes hands, if it's been over a year since it's been inspected, and then once it passes, then it can be re-rented, you know, so.
But I think, was that something that owners would opt in and out of, or would that be mandatory?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
Get an
more
ordinance.
more that
Be involved in
for a
that.
benefit for
Yes.
the owner, the city.
So that would actually discourage people from wanting to be rented when we want to have more of that.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I would think so, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the,
On my end of that, I see both sides of it.
yeah.
It's very good, but also you have owners that when these people are either they leave or they get kicked out or they finally leave, they do a lot, they can have done a lot of damage to that house.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to force owners into participating in that, there better be needs to be some protections for owners too. Because a lot of this, I mean, now they lose, you know, they're already out money because they haven't been paid rent. And now you force them to fix it up, which it needs to be anyways, and they want to do.
But then I also have an inspection fee involved in that. We don't, you know, we need more rentals. We don't need to discourage that, but
That's
the
what it's
standards and
about.
the safety goes across individual owners.
Right, I'm just saying there needs to be some protections in there for owners. Because now they can't rent the house because it doesn't meet the standards of the city, and they also know that too.
Yeah.
Well, some of them do.
You're right, not all of them, I'm just saying there is, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, no, I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
You know, every day, but it's bad enough when it's a local owner, but it's 10 times worse when it's somebody that doesn't live here, doesn't.
Mhm.
Right, I
But
totally agree.
it's more sickening to me when it's a local owner.
Yes, I agree. We see it all the time too.
Yeah, the mayor and I went through that with the house behind us.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, It's a program that could do some good, but it's also, it's a lot of work, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be-
No, it's,
I don't know what people like to.
yeah.
And I mean, like I said, having the fees involved in it. You know, if somebody moves in, doesn't pay their rent, I'm moving somebody else in right away.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, now I have to have it re-inspected
No,
again.
that's
so-
where, that's what they're saying, like you have, every inspection is good for a year or for the length of that tenant. You don't have to re-inspect. But.
Well, how would you police that if, you know, somebody's leaving and the owner has somebody in there the next day or whatever, you know?
Yeah, they change utility owners.
I guess you could.
Yeah, so,
Those things are extremely-
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Plenty of
That's how you get around
property.
that.
Is there a code in place or is that something you're gonna have to make up?
That program, there's, like I said, there's other ordinances, but we would go like that. There's a property maintenance code, kind of like the building code, residential building code, that kind of would give you the guidelines for that. That gives you all the minimum standards you would want to enforce smoke alarms and just running water and all this stuff, you know, so
Where are you on that? Anyway.
nowhere.
Just had a discussion and
Yeah, I mean, it's this time of year too. I constantly look at it because we're getting ready for people not mowing their yards and not, you know, everything's starting to green up. There's just a lot of stuff, you know, but, in the city's one thing, but how do we want or to incorporate that once you get outside the city limits and the buffer zone areas, you know, like how do you write that to give them the leeway out there that is country living? And it's one thing when you're in a subdivision maybe, but if you're just on a county road somewhere that's in our buffer zone, how far do we want to go down on that? You know, so it's just, there's a lot of things to consider, so.
anything else on the?
No, like I said, I just like, you know, yeah. Keep working on this. I'm gonna keep doing updates. Like I said, I've kind of focused on it so far to kind of better match what we have in the city, and the current zoning and look at it for residential, but, I'm gonna do a little bit more over the next month here, looking at the commercial and industrial side of things too, and see what I think there. But like what I just identified a few sites on here for apartments and things like that for multifamily residential. Please take extra look at that, and if there's other ideas of areas or you don't like the areas I've identified, you know, let me know.
Is there like an area you're gonna focus on first or is there?
With the housing plan, they are gonna have, it's gonna be like, here's where we really want you to go work on. And try to get a developer in this area, start talking to the property owner and try to get something done. But that's gonna be about the end of next month, and the housing plan should be finished, so that will keep sharing that with you. Like I said, this is a big report. I'll email you the PDF of it. It's a PowerPoint, so it's not tons of reading on every slide, but it's got a lot of good statistics and things you guys might like to read and go through, so.
Nick, any other thoughts, questions, concerns on Josh's report?
Thank you.
Got that on board, thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Crystal.
Seeing no public here, then I guess we'll have no public comment tonight. Does anyone have anything to add or discuss? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for.
Just one thing, it's like, welcome Craig.
Yes. Welcome aboard, Craig. Thank you. Glad to have you. Glad to be here. Good. Would you like to add anything? Make a speech on your first.
No, I wouldn't. Thank you. Huge learning here.
Have to end the meeting with song.
So I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Definitely a minute.
Yeah.